in Massachusetts has risen to a record 4,800 families now housed in emergency shelters and motels at great cost to the state. Massachusetts housing rental vouchers and rental vouchers toward federal Section 8 housing are two state-supported programs that provide longer-term housing solution for families at risk of becoming homeless, as well as some already in shelters or motels. Would you support significant increases for the next few years for these two programs?
I would support an increase, actually. I think that a very legitimate form of government is to protect people who don't have homes and are struggling on their own. But I think that's a symptom of a problem in our state, which is that we're overburdened in taxation, and also with the recent minimum wage increase. The reality is that these businesses that can't keep up with that, so they have to either cut wages, cut jobs, or cut benefits. And when people lose jobs, they can lose homes and they can get into debt and things like that. So I do think the government stepping in is very important, but I think that's a stopgap solution. I think the real solution comes with economic change in our state.
Representative Atkins.
I agree with part of that answer. This is a problem that we really wrestle with every single year, and we've thrown millions and millions and millions more dollars with each successive budget. But it is not a problem of minimum wage, only the fact that our wages are too low. It's a problem of poverty. And when people are living and working in an environment where 2 or 3 jobs cannot pay the rent, they become homeless. The actual number of people that has happened to keeps growing and growing. So we pay for this program one way or another, either through your tax dollars, by the money that we allocate to provide homes, or also by trying to create a society that is more equal, that people can get unearned sick time, that there is a livable wage, not a minimum wage. The livable wage in London, the City of London in England, is $14 an hour. We've seen a Robert Reich film where the top wage earner in that family is making $21.50 an hour, and they still became homeless. Given the price of housing and the cost of living in this Commonwealth, something like a minimum wage is absolute minimum thing we can do.
Mr. Van Tassell, 30 seconds.
Well, it is common economic sense that when you do raise a minimum wage and businesses have to keep up with their costs, that is going to cause unemployment or reduce in benefits. I do think increased funds is necessary, but that is a band-aid solution. I also agree that poverty is the cause, but I think it's poverty caused by state policy, and I think we need to change that.
Representative Atkins, you'll be first on this question from the audience. We're back to the ballot questions. If the gas tax is not tied to inflation, how do you plan on funding bridge and road repairs that are desperately needed in many communities throughout Massachusetts?
That's a very good question, and it's a good question in regards to what businesses need is predictability to make long-term commitments, and this is what we've tried to do with our transportation policy by buying huge amounts of the goods and services that are involved in our big road projects in advance at a certain price. If we have to chop that up and get allocations and appropriations each year with a separate and different vote, that is going to cost us, some estimates, 2 to 3 times as much for the project, and will take 2 to 3 times as long because of the appropriation process and the voting process. So in retrospect, and if you examine this closely, you'll find that it may be penny wise, but really pound foolish to not index the gas prices to pay for these reforms.
Mr. Van Tassell.
So I will be voting to repeal the automatic gas tax tied to inflation. And for one reason is that I believe that the gas tax should be a percentage-based tax like most of the other taxes we have. We really understand how the sales tax works, and how the income tax works. These are percentage-based taxes. And as inflation goes up, a percentage of your dollar goes up as well. So I would like to see the gas tax be something like the same percentage of the sales tax, but earmarked for roads and bridges and repair such as that.
This next question, Mr. Van Tassel, you'll be first. Do you favor a law permitting election day voter registration? Why or why not?
I do, actually. I think voting is a core liberty that members of our state and of our country should be able to exercise effectively. I don't see a reason why it should be difficult. Voter registration is a fairly simple process, and I don't see why we should be limiting people from voting.
Representative Atkins?
I most certainly do, and I support registering 17-year-olds early so that they're right there and ready to vote when it's time. I support voting early, as they do in other states, so that people can adjust voting schedules to their own personal schedules, so when they're free, so we can make it as open and convenient as possible. Anything we can do to open up the democratic process, I am in favor of.
30-second rebuttal.
I just wanted to add real quick, I agree with that as well, and actually I would be really appreciative if we got some kind of movement to have Election Day be a holiday, because I really think it's difficult for a lot of people to get out of work, and they either have to vote really early in the morning or they have to go after work, and it can be really burdensome if they have kids to take care of and stuff like that. So I think a voting holiday would actually be a very interesting thing to look at.
The next question will begin with Representative Atkins. What, if any, changes do you think the legislature should make to Chapter 40B, the Affordable Housing Law?
The changes that I think could successfully be made to Chapter 40B, which is a law that allows developers to come in. If a community has under 10% of their housing, 10% of a community's housing should be affordable. If it is not, a developer can pull what they call a 40B permit, which allows them to develop if they do a quarter of their buildings as affordable units, and they don't have to abide by the local permitting process. Towns hate it. Advocates say it's the only way that we have affordable housing. I think as a policy, it's been a dismal failure, because we looked up the statistics as how much housing's been built on 40B, and it is an embarrassment. One of the things I do think could help is a regional approach. You have towns and small communities like Carlisle, Harvard, Stowe. These are communities without infrastructure of water and sewer. Makes it very hard for them to develop. If they could coordinate with other communities and be part of a regional approach to affordable housing, because we also want people to live in places where there's access to transportation and stores to shop.
Mr. Van Tassel, same question.
One of the basic tenets of my political philosophy in my campaign is to give more power back to the people and to their local municipalities. I would be in support of repealing Chapter 40B in its entirety and giving the power back to the local planning boards and communities, because they understand where best affordable housing could be implemented and things of that nature, and instead of being strong-armed by a state law that allows developers to only use 10% of an area for affordable housing and to try to exploit the rest of it for their own gains.
Thank you. We'll begin with Mr. Van Tassel for this question. Share with the audience your experience in the public sector, town committees, etc.
I have no experience in the public sector town committees other than volunteering locally. In my community, I'm an Eagle Scout from Troop 74 in Chelmsford, Massachusetts. I've been heavily involved with the Boy Scouts of America. I recently, as you know, as I said earlier, graduated from college, so I'm a little young compared to most people that might be running for a state representative. But I'm very eager to get into the public service, and I look forward to doing that this November.
Representative Atkins.
I've been a member of the Democratic Town Committee for 40 years. I've worked in volunteer positions throughout the town with arts groups. I've worked internationally with Margarita Papandreou, who is the first American-born First Lady of Greece, on issues of disarmament and development. I led a delegation and we met with Gorbachev during one of the summits on disarmament. I've been a state representative. I've been, did you just say government?
It said public sector or town committees.
Public sector. So you don't mean arts groups and...
This was from the audience.
Okay. I've been on the board of Handel and Haydn. I've been on the board of Merrimack Repertory Theater. I ran the Governor's Drug Task Force in Lowell. I've been on the board of 51 Walden. I've been on the board of a substance abuse organization. I've worked hand in hand with troubled youth. I've taken in a couple of troubled youth and helped launch them to college. I think I'll stop there.
Thank you.